Welcome to SHiFT YRC Podcast, a podcast developed by young and early career researchers of the SHiFT Ghost Action. For more information about SHiFT, take a look at the details in the channel description. I'm Silvia, and I'm here with Carlos. In each episode, we sit down with special guests from our SHiFT community to uncover their journey, challenges, and insights that are shaping the world of research. Today, we're thrilled to welcome Sérgio Barbosa. It's such a pleasure to have you here. Thank you for joining us today.
Yes, thank you very much. Yeah.
Hello, Sergio. Again, thank you very much for being here today, for accept our invitation. So let's start at the beginning of your journey. Can you tell us a bit about your academic background and your career journey so far, and maybe the moment or the experience that spark your interest in your specialization?
Yes. Firstly, I would like to also to thank you the opportunity and to congratulate the SHiFT Young Researchers Council for just a brilliant initiative. The other podcasts are fantastic, and now I also have the chance to share a little bit my journey as a young scientist. And then I would start with the beginning. So during my bachelor degrees in sociology, I was part of a research project investigating the political participation of undergraduate students at the University of Brasília. And then we noticed a gap between what the literature said about the traditional forms of political participation vis-a-vis what young people were really doing to participate in political life. These young students were mainly active on social media platforms, for example, sharing information, collecting votes, and gathering signatures from online petitions, but also occupying the streets. It was the so-called June Journeys in 2013, when massive public protests happened all over Brazil. And during my master's degree in political sociology at the Federal University of Santa Catarina, I started being a member of political WhatsApp groups. As a sociologist by formation, I was intrigued by the intimate nature of this backstage activism on chat apps and how communicative repertoires differed from the algorithmically curated feeds on platforms such as X, Facebook, and YouTube, which most of the researchers were investigating at that time. So embarking on my PhD in Portugal allowed me to further develop the novel of the Global South WhatsAppers. The notion of the WhatsAppers designates a particular way to participate in political life by appropriate WhatsApp affordances for activist goals. Instead of being present on social media platforms that run by algorithms, the so-called WhatsAppers very much prefer closed environments of messaging apps. In doing so, the research broke with the dominant Anglo-Saxon framework, mainly investigating the large-scale formal mobilizations based in Europe and US. Against this background, I have focused to investigate everyday activism in the Global South, taking Brazil as an empirical case study. To conclude, I think that I have a on-the-move journey. I have lived in Brazil, Portugal, Spain, Norway, the US, Netherlands, UK, Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. I became a citizen of the world with double nationality and born in Brazil, where I lived until the end of my master in political sociology. I have successfully finished my PhD last year at the University of Coimbra.
Wow, that's a big life experience you've had already. So, wow. And what was in this long journey the moment that sparked your interest really in your specialization?
You mean to become also a sociologist and to delve into
Yes,
the
if there
sociology?
was a particular moment where you felt like this is the start of my journey, this is what I want to do.
Yeah. So when I first think about the answer, I was thinking during my academic journey, but maybe it was a little bit earlier during my elementary school, whereas I was a very good student in the humanities disciplines such as history and geography. So I have very good professors in Brazil, and also we have very good discussions about the colonization. At that time, I was also more eager to be a diplomat, so to try international relations. But then after third year of the high school, and then when I was studying for the SAT in Brazil, I have a very good course of sociology. And then it was very good professor, and he said, "Oh, listen, you should also invest this as academic expertise." And then it always started. I first started with the bachelor, and in the fourth period of the course, I have a very good professor of political sociology, which now I work again with her in a project partnership in Brazil. And then from this, I moved to the master in political sociology and then the PhD. So it was a very one step combined with the other one. But that's it. I think that it was more my spirit of investigated things of in an equal society and my expertise more in the humanities area, which is usually not the way how you drive for, I would say, for the Brazilian society that they usually push you to try law or medicine studies, for example.
So it was really a natural development of your interests and studies, basically, I guess.
Yes, I think so. Just one thing more. At the time, before being a sociologist, I was a basketball player, and I also read a literature book called Vidas Secas, which means warm lives in Portuguese, of Graciliano Ramos. And the book also put me to reflect beyond my everyday life. And this book also it was a changing I think book in my journey. I was so young, just worried about to win the basketball match, but then the book also put me to see also society in another way, also the way how they describe relationship with the dog that's called Baleia. It was a very poor family in the northeast of Brazil. So maybe the book also was a way, as you asked me, a episode or something like this that would drive me to the sociological studies in a later stage.
Well, that's really interesting. I would look into that book suggestion you just made. It's also really interesting to get to know more about all the different elements that get into the work and development of a researcher, you know. So it's also great to have new suggestions for new development also in our career. And getting more into the theme of research, what do you consider to be some of the biggest challenges in sustainability, transformation, and climate resilience that young researchers should address?
As I mentioned before, my work concentrated more on the notion of WhatsAppers to review these everyday activists that are able to accrue personal, family, professional, and political functions in one single platforms. And then to make the path with the sustainability, I think that the app can also become a way to become identity generator of political identity, which means that fellow activists engage in dialogue through private chat rooms, making their engagement with political activism as an intimate affair that is simultaneously mediated by WhatsApp and its affordances. And for me, the challenge is precisely how we can connect this local activism to transform to the climate activism, which would be connect with a sustainability transformation and climate resilience agenda. And then making the intersection with these chat app-based movements. I think that the research challenge when we look at innovation would bring these two agendas at the same roof. One would be the transformation, the climate resilience agenda, and the other one of the chat apps based activism. And I mean like this because when I first look at WhatsApp as a platform also for political participation, I didn't make the bridge with climate activism, but nowadays I can see that most of the groups that I did research, they are changing from this climate agenda, also taking care of the local neighborhoods with the periods of heavy rainings in Brazil, for example. So I would say that would be how I can link sustainability and climate resilience agenda in the case of my research.
Thank you, Sérgio. I believe that in your experience, the interest and the activism work for you as a way to call you for this research, for in a way that the formation or the background that you have. But what challenge did you face during your career path in academia and research? And is there a recent project or finding that you are especially proud of, enthusiastic about?
As I mentioned before, I did also a on-the-move academic journey, although not without institutional constraints. No? This journey started when I was in the final stage of the Master in Political Sociology in the south of Brazil. I was living in Florianópolis, and then I have initiated my PhD at the University of Coimbra. And then unplanned transition cost me 3 years from 2016 to 2019 without a grant and working precariously. Thanks to a very complicated Portuguese academic system to go through also recognition of non-EU diplomas. And the reason that I have survived being employed by SILF, sponsored by Tolkien Foundation, and the FCT, the Portuguese Foundation for Science and Technology, is that I faced these constraints during this gap period. So in fact, this pushed me to start like a nomadic trajectory and live in many global north countries while I conduct my career mainly in Portugal. So I'm currently doing my postdoc at the University of Geneva, while also serving as a visiting fellow at the University of Graz. And I would say that I have further accumulate experience to transform this current research agenda that I'm doing in larger grant proposals. And I think that the second question was about if I'm especially proud for some thing recently.
Is there a recent project or finding that you are especially proud of, enthusiastic about?
Yes, I think that I would point out the transition of the end of my PhD. As I mentioned before, the transition from the master of the PhD was not planned very well, so it was a lack of strategy. But from the transition from the end of the PhD at the University of Coimbra and the start of my postdoc at the University of Geneva, I faced again loss of bureaucratic process from the transition from Portugal to Switzerland. It cost me immense urgent energy to deliver timely the PhD diploma from University of Coimbra to University of Geneva and to start the postdoc. But I have been awarded with a Swiss government excellent scholarship called ESCAS, and provides also international postgraduate students to the opportunity to continue their studies of research at a public or state accredited university in Switzerland. In this case, I chosen University of Geneva, and there my home institute is the Institute of Citizenship Studies, where I'm supervised by the professor Marco Giuni. So I think that maybe I made some mistakes from the transition from the master to the PhD, but maybe now I make some successful choices from the transition from the PhD to the postdoc. So I would mention and put it like this.
And about your work with the Shift Coast, so your experience with the Shift Coast action, how has working in an interdisciplinary environment like the Shift Coast action enhanced your research capabilities?
I think that also through the Young Research Council, you are doing a very good job. Also putting your youngest researchers to be in some way networked and also working together. So I congratulate you again. I think that with Shift, my main goal is to investigate how digital transformation can be turned into concrete education policies. Research has aimed to nurture future generations through top-down legislation, mainly focused on regulating, for example, digital transformation from the state level. However, little research has focused on developing education programs from social participatory approach, combining pedagogical skills to foster practical dimensions on agents, active young people to play a multidisciplinary role for climate resilience. To do so, the idea is to focus on how pedagogical activities are based on informal learning, which aims to stimulate young people to exchange communal practical experiences about mountain areas. And on the other hand, while thinking through bottom-up education pedagogies, how underrepresented young people were challenged to observe knowledge about climate change. I'm currently also developing a project about digital literacy with young people at schools in Brazil. So with Shift, I'm trying that maybe we do an evolution of this project and also try bring like climate resilience to the agenda of these pedagogical initiatives, which means that, for example, in the future, while we would have our elementary school and high school, we also have some maybe sessions or education programs to discuss this issue, and then we can think about long-term perspectives or long-term education policies.
Are there any particular initiatives or aspects on the Shift Cost action that you have found special beneficial and directly impact your research or career development so far?
Yes, I think that I would put my participation in the 24 Mountains for Sustainability workshop was a very special for me. That was last year. I have participated in different work streams in Manteigas, Serra da Estrela in Portugal. So I was back also to the country where I started my PhD journey. And during this event, I received the official confirmation of my PhD degree at the University of Coimbra. So it was a very, I would say, happy a moment. And therefore, I have also learned during this workshop on how to transform marginalized mountain areas into a green, digital health place of living. To that end, the workshop provided me also to the other young participants important takeaways on how the approach to social investment and relevant policy interventions can be applied to future initiatives on how to include young people's participation. In addition, I had the chance to develop strong networks with SHiFT members while promoting best practices at the micro level, which would be the local communities of Serra da Estrela, especially related to the workshop scientific goals and scopes and described in the mains memorandum of understanding of SHiFT course action, in a sense to pave urgent transitions towards transdisciplinary work, in this case of the workshop focus on marginalized mountain areas. And in addition, during the workshop, young researchers had the chance also to meet the chair, Fernando Rolo, which also you both have the privilege to interview her in the first podcast. So it was also a chance that we exchange a lot. She really likes to engage in conversations with young researchers. So it was a very nice moment of the action for me.
Well, it was also great to have you here. It's always interesting to listen to new stories and get different perspective on this huge field of climate resilience and transformation. So thank you again for being here. And so until now, we've talked about your past experience and the current state and your current positions in this big field. But looking ahead, what kind of opportunities do you see emerging in the field of sustainability, transformation, and climate resilience?
I think that there is a plenty of opportunities in these areas, and mainly on how we connect young people from bottom-up education initiatives. I think that the challenge in the case on how I'm trying also to build a new research agenda would be to develop pedagogical strategies also based on these marginalized communities. For me, the goal would be to enable us researchers to attack development paths and environment-sensitive adaptation process based also on emerging digital technologies. I think the idea of the theoretical framework combining common lens with participatory pedagogy can also be improved with some participatory pedagogy such as conversation circles, being able to foster this idea of participatory pedagogy. I think that so far, while marginalized mountain areas have attracted huge numbers of scholars, there is limited research on pedagogical initiatives on how youth engage with territories, who is engaging, their pathways for access information, why they are looking, why online instead of offline, and how do they look and how do they also share the information on platforms, mainly when we look for these more marginalized areas. And I think that these career opportunities, they have three main points. One, this maybe I would select to encourage a long-term education campaign to foster knowledge transfer, looking at mainly at the young people. The second one, to engage in pedagogical process and transdisciplinary co-construction. I think that this is also I think the soul of SHiFT, to build this all transdisciplinary agenda. And the third one would be to create new formats of pedagogical tools. I'm also working now with educators, so I'm very interested also how to tackle this issue. And take this transdisciplinary approach, these career opportunities may recommend in the future relevant policy interventions to tackle education research communities for cross-sector policy. For us young researchers, it's very difficult also to survive in a competitive job market of academia, but at the same time, we should also think about how this would in some way, as a consequence, interfere in policy making in the future. So I think that this would be the main challenges for a research agenda.
Thank you very much,
Are you
Sergio. Thank you very
Yeah.
much. Very important insights. You say early that during your background, you work a lot with the young people in the WhatsApp groups, mainly related to the activist groups. So, in that sense, what advice would you give to young researchers that just starting their careers in these fields?
Thank you for that question. I think that I would start also mention about another experience with SHiFT. I mentioned about the workshop last year, but also I was privileged to do a short mission that was sponsored by SHiFT from University of Coimbra to University of Graz. And then the research visit was very inspiring and rich at the University of Graz, which investigated new formats of how everyday citizens also can absorb critical data literacy against the notion of digital universalism. University of Graz supported also me to create a syllabus for MA students, where I also co-taught the syllabus during the spring term last year. It was an immense pleasure to be linked to a quite vibrant, culturally engaged, and diverse research community of the Department of Sociology of University of Graz. And this STS period allowed me also to develop follow-up activities such as drafting abstract that I will present now in the Forum of Sociology in Rabat in July. And the experience also prepared me for some job applications that I'm doing right now. This was very important in my career because I couldn't also serve as a visiting fellow at the bundle centers, and this always started when I was doing a short mission last year at the University of Graz. So here I would is the moment that I would also suggest to early stage careers to apply for short missions, to get a broader, I would say, networks across European countries, and sometimes going abroad, you can see also your research topics with a diverse group of scholars and improve your ideas and get more experience. And also you asked me about advice. During my journey, as I mentioned before, I lived so many countries, so I applied for fellowships. So as a PhD student, you can also apply for the so-called junior fellowships. So while you conduct your PhD research, you can deliver an article, a chapter of your thesis, and being part of different international institutes worldwide. So I will name the four that I was part. The first one was the Center for Advanced Studies, Internet Studies, called KAIS in Bochum, Germany. It was my first fellowship in 2022. And I did another fellowship at the Institute for Human Science in Vienna, which was also a very nice institute, bringing also scholars from Eastern Europe, from the Global South. The third one, it was also in Graz, the Institute for Advanced Studies on Science and Technology and Society, vinculated to the TU Graz. So even I am a sociologist by formation, there are space also in universities more connected with engineering, with natural science to bring your research topic, thinking from a transdisciplinary approach. And the last one, it was in Munich, in Germany, the Center for Advanced Studies, which is vinculated for LMU, more connected with my WhatsApp research. So this will be my first advice. And the second one is to not give up after rejection, especially I'm saying here for Global South scholars. So try to improve your project idea, your abstract, and apply another time. Yeah, to access the Portuguese citizenship, in my case, being a Brazilian, it was a tough process. In the beginning, I was forced to bypass the immigration interviews because I didn't have a contract to prove my stipendium in Portugal. So my strategy was to go abroad and do part-time to pay my bills and debits. Because at the end of the day, academia is a very competitive job market, as we also discussed before. And also as being a migrant in another country, you need to pay your bills and the rent and have a minimal conditions to survive in academia. Né? I always mention that they ask me which kind of career that I did. I think that I did the survival career and sometimes applying for some opportunities that I didn't think that was possible, but in the end, I made it happen. And to conclude, I would think that there are many barriers also with this movement from the global south to the global north regarding passport privilege, the networks already consolidating the global north, the housing facilities, the immigration documents bureaucracy, and also I mentioned in the beginning the recognition of diplomas, but there is a light in the end of the tunnel. So try to be more experienced as possible. I would suggest also the book of Karen Kelsky, The Professor is In, which also give you some instruction on how to write competitive job documents. Sometimes we are in academia, they teach us how to write a thesis, but not how to write job documents. So it's also important. And I think that's it. I mentioned many things that it's the challenge of being an academic in the 21st century.
Thank you, because you gave us a lot of practical suggestions and information that might be really useful to people trying to start their career in academic fields. So thank you very much. And I also totally agree with the fact that going abroad helps broadening your mind, finding new approaches and new solutions for your research, because getting in contact with different cultures and different approaches from different countries, it's always helpful to finding a new point of view for your research. So I totally agree with everything you said and you suggested.
Yes, exactly. And I would point out also to follow up your comment that cost is very important for this because the structure is very bottom up. So younger researchers can apply for these fundings and going abroad with some support and having some international experience. So of course I was able to foster networks from Norway to North Macedonia, from Portugal to Turkey. So also it was a way also to be part of Eastern Europe, which we are very westernized in this side of Europe. So it's a way how you can also move, bring your research, challenge yourself, and reinventing yourself as a young researcher. So it's very important that we foster this bottom-up way of also having agency, also to bring your topics like everywhere, and not only in Europe. So of course, I was able to go to Australia, to Cape Verde, and also to develop projects in Brazil. So I was literally all over the world.
That's great experience you had. I'm really actually jealous you got to, because I understand it might be difficult to get all the bureaucracy set and everything to move from one place to the other, coming from Brazil as well to Europe. But at a certain, like at the end, the experience you get and the results you get are so amazing that it's all worth it, I guess.
Exactly. I think that on the move is also nice because I mentioned all these benefits, but also there are constraints, like you mentioned about the housing was something that was very difficult for me because when I was moving, I was closing a home and opening another. If you would go back to your home, it would be easier. But when you are always opening new place, and then it's very complicated to manage it all. But at the same time, there are all these benefits that you can. In my case, I was able also to publish in top ranked journals because I was supervised by senior researchers who very well experienced, would guide me through the process. So I can tell that was a strategy to survive, but in the end gave me a lot. So I would be that I also privileged in the sense that the on the move facilitated my way. Also starting with such constraints, what I mentioned, because my life changed after accessing the Portuguese citizenship, because then you don't need to prove the residence with the residence cards anymore. So it's really a easier process. So before I was going also to embassies all the time, collecting a huge list of documents, and this is consumes you a lot of energy. And that's why I mentioned about all these constraints about the passport privilege, because also your mobility would be facilitated. So if you have the conditions, do it, because then I think that would be a way also to foster like a long-term career. Of course, we never know would be the next step, but at least you can conduct from step by step, I would say, like from small degrees.
Yeah, and it's also already a kind of success that you've had, a story of success you had, moving and starting your career and being able to actually bring it over.
Yeah.
And So getting to the end of this interview, we wanted to ask what you think is the role of both young and senior researchers in shaping policy and practice in sustainability, transformation, and climate resilience.
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think that the answer would be also this transdisciplinary way to produce research. Also, senior researchers working side by side with the young researchers, providing then also the chance to be part of the research agenda and have the agents also to produce the research outputs. In a sense, for example, I think that the senior researchers, they have really consciousness that they also face the competitive academia, but now is even difficult, even more to get, I would say, a full-time job position. So we are always, as young researchers, jumping from one position to another one. So I think that this transdisciplinary between also age and generations helps a lot because they are more mature. Also, they can guide you in a way on how you prepare yourself for the job market. So try to be exchanging the most as possible. They create possibilities for you to apply for some proposals or for some applications that you don't know about it. That's the main important, like this bridge between generations and working in a transdisciplinary way. I think that Fernanda Rollo is a very good example as the chair of the cost action because she always mentioned about this importance of working with young people. And I saw this with my in practice there in the workshop in Manteigas, because also she mentioned this during our conversations and activities during the workshop. So I think that's the challenge, because also these I would say senior generation, they know very well about how the power structures works, what all the troubles that they face in academia. So they need to facilitate, I would say, the gates and also take care of this young generation, because sometimes we are situated now in the global north, and we know very well that this pedagogy of competition is part of the system, but also we need someone also to care these scholars, and that they will be in sustainable conditions to promote new discoveries for science and so on. So that's I would be my suggestion, that this be an ongoing bridge and care in the better meaning that this word has, also from the part of the older generation and the younger generation.
That brings us to the end of this episode. I don't know if Sergio, you have something more to add.
I just say many thanks for having me. I think that it's a very nice interview guide. I can go through also my mistakes in the career, or what's something that I would not be able, if I would go back in the past, I would do differently, but also think about the future. So I like very much the work that you do. This year also for me, I'm already again doing like a job hunting process, so applying for new positions. So it's like very tough. But I would like also to collaborate with SHiFT in the new activities. A very engaged action, I can tell, because I can compare with other actions. So I hope that also young people would be eager also to apply for all these opportunities that sometimes we are not so, I mean, we are having a narrow view of where we are, but we can always think beyond and think in other ways on how we bring our research agendas. And I thank you very much for the opportunity. And I would also dedicate this podcast for brave Global South scholars, that they are everywhere in the world, and they never give up of their dreams, and of way also to be part of academic community in the Global North.
A big thank you to Sérgio Barbosa for sharing these valuable insights, and thank you to our listeners for tuning into SHiFT YRC podcast. We hope you are leaving with new insights, inspiration, and maybe even spark for your next project. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, share it with your network, and keep an eye out for more episodes. Stay curious, stay connected, and we'll see you next time. Thank you very much.